So, hello everybody, and a very big warm welcome to you all today. And this is our Stress Awareness Month event, our Stress Awareness Month event. There we go. A little tongue twister there. And our event is called How to Deal with Stress at Work. So, it's really wonderful to be here today with you all. My name is Tanya Diggory. I'm the founder and director of Karma. We are a UK-based global mental health and wellbeing training organisation dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs, freelancers, and business teams to prevent burnout and nurture mental wellness. So everything we do at its heart, at its centre, is about empowering you to understand all the types of different strategies, tools, techniques that you can use that are evidence-based, drawn from evidence-based research to help you thrive in your mental health and well-being. So without further ado, I'm going to share a presentation with you all and get started. So here we go. So hopefully you can all see that. And for anyone who is new to Karma, a huge welcome to you. And those of you who are joining, who are regular attendees of our events or have worked with us or are working with us as clients, a huge welcome to you too. It's always lovely to connect with new people and reconnect with those who we are working with or have attended our events. So it's really lovely to be here. A little reminder and a little recap for those of you who aren't aware as well. Our philosophy at Karma is that we believe a happy mind makes for a happy business. So essentially, when you're looking after your mental health and well-being, you are in turn looking after your work, how effective you are in your work, how productive you feel, etc. And our philosophy stems on these sort of three core values. We believe in the power of education, nurturing your mindset and your well-being, the power of community, building your support system and your tribe, and the power of connection, deepening and enhancing a sense of self-awareness, connecting with yourself, but also connecting with others too. So everything we do is underpinned by these three values, all of our educational resources that we believe are integral to nurturing good mental health and well-being and preventing burnout. So today we're here to talk about how to deal with stress at work, a really timely topic, and to mark Stress Awareness Month this year. So to start with, we're just going to do a brief overview about stress and the common signs and symptoms, and I'll share a resource with you to look at further in your own time. So our state really does have an impact on our mental, physical, and emotional health. There's a lot of really interesting dialogue in our industry nowadays around questioning whether there should even be a separation of mental health and physical health, because the two are so interlinked. So it's really exciting to hear this kind of dialogue happening now, and just recognizing more and more through a wide variety of research that the mind is very much interconnected with the body. And it makes sense when you think about it. We all have a body, we have a mind, a brain. Encased within that body, we have a physical state, we have our emotions that fluctuate and communicate with different parts of our body all the time. So there's a term in neuroscience for this called the mind-body connection, and it essentially links to research that highlights that the mind essentially has the power to either heal or hinder the body. So essentially what we think affects how we feel, physically, emotionally, and therefore how we behave. So our thoughts link to our physical responses and our feelings and emotions, and this influences our behavior. Okay, so put simply, when we're thinking of the stress response, which is something we all have, there's a part of the human brain that is dedicated to that fight, flight, or freeze response. You may have heard that phrase before. That's essentially the stress response in the brain. It's designed to keep you safe and away from danger. It's designed to motivate you, to get you to take action, to to pay attention, to things that crop up, that are challenging, that need your attention. But the thing is, we're not designed to be stressed out human beings, okay? But we can really take steps like you're doing today to learn about what we can do to look after our mental health and well-being, manage stress levels so that we can identify what we best need when stress arises, okay? Because there are different parts of the brain that function for different reasons, and the stress response doesn't actually really handle logic, effective decision making, planning, doing, that part of the brain is a different part called it lives within the prefrontal cortex, which is this frontal lobe part of the brain here. So if we think about it from that perspective, we all go through stress, we all face stressful events, stress will come up, but we do have a hand in how we manage and handle stresses as and when they arise. So we can experience short, manageable bursts of stress and come out of stressful events, but we need to actively take steps to do that. We're not designed to be living in a high stress state for ongoing periods of time that's unresolved. That can inevitably lead to fluctuations in anxiety issues, mood issues, and eventually even burnout, which is where we feel mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted, like a car running with no fuel. There's just nothing left to give. So I'm going to share a resource with you now called The 5 Stages of Burnout. And this is inspired by the Winona State University study on burnout. And it's Karma's model that has been our highest performing blog to date. So you can find it on our website if you search for The 5 Stages of Burnout. And it's these key areas here, really. So understanding that we hear about stress and burnout a lot, but they're two very different states of being. So we have that honeymoon phase. So imagine you're just starting out in a new job or a new project, and you've got that high satisfaction, commitment, energy, creativity. So you might feel anticipation or nervousness or a little bit of stress, but it's actually around, sort of positive output. But then in time, inevitably, stressful things happen, challenges arise, and we can experience that onset of stress where optimism can wane a little bit and more common stress symptoms can start to affect you. So really common stress signs can vary, and we can all experience different signs depending on what we're going through. So whether it's sort of pain, tension and tightness in different muscles of the body, if it's racing thoughts, if it's feeling worried, if it's dizziness or fatigue, feeling a lack of energy, etc. So there's lots of different types of signs and symptoms that we can experience with stress. And like I said earlier, short manageable bursts of stress is a normal human experience. And actually, sometimes a burst of stress can help us perform well. It can motivate us to take action. It can help us overcome a challenge where we feel proud of ourselves afterwards. So, but when we don't come out of those stress states and we remain at a high stress state, that's when it can lead to more chronic levels of stress. So a marked change in your stress levels, more intense symptoms, perhaps searching for, other substances to help us cope, like coffee, sugar, alcohol, those kind of things where you're not reaching for it as a treat, it's more an unhealthy habit. And so there's a clear marked change in your behavior, in your sort of like traits and things like that. And then if this isn't managed and this operates at a high level for long periods of time, this is what can lead to burnout. So as I mentioned before, it's when you feel physically, mentally and emotionally exhausted, and symptoms here become a lot more critical. It's increasingly difficult to cope, and which can eventually lead to habitual burnout, where you're more likely to have a diagnosis of a mental health condition in this state. So just as a brief overview, this is our core model that we underpin all of our education on, at Karma. So I wanted to just go through this bit briefly with you to give you that understanding of the difference between stress and burnout. There's a brief quote here as well. I love to include a quote in our presentations. So change is a constant in nature and therefore a constant in our lives. How we respond to change is essentially in our control, and our reactions can have a significant impact on how we deal with challenging situations. So we're here to talk about how we deal with stress at work, right? So this is a quote from my first book, This is Karma, Inspiration, Support and Encouragement for the Entrepreneurial Mind. So if you haven't given that a read, do feel free to do so. Lots of tips in there. And I just felt this was very timely with what we're talking about today. So if we start by looking at some common causes of work-related stress, and do feel free to use the chat function here to share your own thoughts with one another as well. So excessive workload, struggling to keep up with and balance and manage your workload, especially if it feels like it's becoming unrealistic, having conflicting demands, either put upon you or demands that you place on yourself, feeling like there's a lack of support and you're just kind of getting by yourself as best you can, but you really could do with more of that support, whether it's from your manager, whether it's from your peers, your colleagues, feeling a sense of lack of control over decisions. And we do like to feel a sense of control in our days. That is really one of the many things that helps to nurture our sense of mental health and well-being. So not feeling in control of decisions, having potential conflict with colleagues, or sort of lack of chemistry, which can happen, and then a lack of autonomy. We all appreciate. I'm pretty sure I can confidently say that we all appreciate having a sense of autonomy in our work, not being constantly told what to do or micromanaged. So, studies have consistently shown as well, and also feedback from our clients, that, when people feel like their autonomy is being taken away, and they're not feeling trusted to make the decisions and to do the work that they were hired to do, then that can lead to a real conflicting feeling and stressor as well at work. So any other things that are cropping up for you right now, do feel free to share in the chat box, connect with one another, see what actually is the thing for you, or is there anything in particular here that's really resonating with you? So let's look at ways to manage stress and nurture good mental health. So we're aware that these are common stresses. And to start with, I'd like you to consider thinking about keeping track of your stresses through writing. So writing and talking are two ways that sound simple in terms of how you'd look after your mental health, but they're incredibly effective, because what's actually going on in the brain is it's really helping to turn the dial down on that stress response. It helps you to process and regulate your feelings and emotions, and it brings resources into that prefrontal cortex area that I mentioned at the beginning, that part of the brain that handles logical thinking, effective decision making, planning, doing, etc. So writing is one of those things. It's not just existing in your mind and feel like it's jumping around your body when you're thinking a range of different potentially overwhelming thoughts. When you actually write those down, it creates clarity. It's something in front of you that is tangible. It's something you can do something about, that you can actually have as more of a process. And it's the next step that you need to make sense of what it is that you're going through. So it's something that, like I say, sounds simple, but it's incredibly important. So thinking of, recording your feelings, your thoughts, information about your environment, the physical setup of your work, anyone else who's involved, linked to the stresses that's coming up for you. So just think about, even just for a week or two, just journaling the stresses that are coming up, and processing that. Think about any situations that you are finding stressful, and also being mindful of your response to them as well. So think about as many details as you can. The next step of that is to start thinking about identifying any patterns that you notice, and also taking notice of your reactions. So, for example, with the stresses that come up, do you raise your voice when these are happening, or do you go very much introspective and quiet and sort of shut down? Do your habits lend you to reach for more coffee, reach for something sweet, something that is almost like a bit of a coping mechanism in attachment to the stressor that you're facing? Do you actually do something like go for a walk and actually get outside? So by taking note of the patterns that you're noticing in relation to the stresses that are happening, this really helps you to understand your reactions to them, and to identify whether they're actually helpful or whether they could be hindering your stress levels. Following this, I would encourage you to assess what's in your control. As I said before, as human beings, we generally like to have a sense of control over what's going on in our day-to-day lives as much as we can. Of course, appreciating that we can't control everything in our lives. That's just not possible. Some things will come out of nowhere. Some things will be unmanageable. Some things we will have no control over, or they'll feel unmanageable. But there are things that we won't have any control over. So it is identifying what is actually in your control, because you might surprise yourself with finding out what you can influence or take control in. So with what you're writing down, identifying those specific stresses, looking at them and asking yourself, is this in my control, or is this out of my control to manage? If it's in your control, then go through that step by step. What can I do? Who can help me? Who can I speak to? What can I change to alleviate this issue? And if it's not in your control, think, is there any way I can influence this in some way? I might not directly have an impact on the outcome of this, but I might be able to influence it, or speak to someone who can help. And always remembering that you have full control over your reactions to situations. So even if you can't control something, you can control how you react, which is where when we talk about stress management, it is so important because it's the space between the stressor that's happening and you, and your reaction sits in the middle of that, right? And that space, in that space, you have the ability to choose, and we can easily lose sight of that. So I'm going to elaborate more on that in a moment. Seek support from your manager or from your trusted colleague. So if for whatever reason you're not feeling comfortable to talk to your manager, consider speaking to a colleague that you do trust, or a mental health first aider or wellbeing champion if you have those in your organization, people who are dedicated to really championing and supporting staff around mental health and stress management. But just again, that talking value, as I mentioned earlier, like with writing, it helps get things off your chest. There's a reason that there are these phrases that exist, like a problem shared is a problem halved, taking the weight off your shoulders, those kind of things, because it creates clarity, momentum. It helps you understand what it is that you need next, right? So getting things off your chest, and remembering that, if you can talk to your manager, if you do feel comfortable to do so, remembering that your manager has a legal duty of care to support their staff, their teams, and making sure that they are feeling as best supported as possible. So do remember that they are there for you, and hopefully, will want to hear, especially if anything could be potentially impacting your work or the quality of your work. Recognizing your limits and establishing healthy boundaries. This is also really, really key. And again, easier said than done, but we have so many distractions in our busy day-to-day lives nowadays, and we all have our limits, right? There's so much stimulus going on around us all the time, but we need to recognize what our limits are, and what those healthy boundaries can be that we're perhaps not accessing as much as could be, as fruitful for us. So by thinking about a few things, a few sort of quick wins. What about protecting your time and digital distractions? So just being a lot more conscious about when you check notifications, when you check emails, when you have your phone on loud, when you even look at your phone. Do you have a cutoff time for just putting your phone aside in the evenings, for example, and having boundaries around email management? Because it's very easy when we're in a switched on world to switch on any time, but you're not hired to work 24/7 around the clock, and we're not designed as human beings to be switched on all the time. That's not healthy for us, and it only goes in one direction. So you do really need to be mindful of where are those pauses, those breaks, those times for reflection and reassessment, and recharging your batteries. So thinking about what that means for you in terms of protecting your time. The next thing is, could you say no a little bit more with kindness, with appreciation of the fact that you might have been requested something, or you might have been invited to a social event, but just creating a little bit more space in your life could be just what you need. And sometimes saying no can come with a solution, right? So it doesn't have to be just a straight no. Just think, okay, I can't, or I'm not able to on this occasion, or I have to do this instead. However, can I help you find someone else who can do this for you? So you're helping the individual, especially if it's work related, find another solution. And prioritizing your sleep. I cannot emphasize enough how valuable and how vitally important it is to look at your sleep routine. Experts empower people to try to get at least 7 to 9 hours on average. That is the optimal amount of sleep that we need as adults, maybe a bit less or a bit more, but it's really about the quality of the sleep that you get. And our sleep can really determine how we feel and how we behave, and how we react and respond to situations on a daily basis. It's our brain's time to really take in all the day's events. We're taking in millions of bits of data per second, and we're only able to process so much of that consciously. It would be sensory overload to take everything in. So we really need to give ourselves that, that time and space, and look at what we're doing before going to bed. How are we easing into a sleep routine? If you want to go to bed at 11, for example, what can you do from 10 to slowly start easing into a routine for yourself that gets you into a more restful state? Because remember, we fluctuate in and out of different states of being all the time, right? So being mindful of that. We understandably need to be in a restful state before sleep. If we're active, highly active, or just had a workout, or we've been looking at our screens, your body's not going to be in that state that's going to get into good quality deep sleep for at least another hour or so. That's what studies have shown. So think about how you can prioritize your sleep and just the benefit that will give you in terms of managing stress. And finally, taking time to reflect and recharge. One of my favorite phrases is, we're human beings, not human doings. We're not created to just be doing all the time. We do need time to switch off, to reflect, and to reassess how things are going. So really gifting yourself the time to do that is important. And with everything I've written here, no one is going to do this for you. It really does come down to you to make these conscious decisions, conscious efforts. And if you're really thinking to yourself, I really can't see a way of how I can do this, then ask yourself with kindness, why could that be? What's the blockage, of what is getting in the way? Because there really needs to be that space for you to do this, because like I say, we're not designed to be switched on and in doing mode all the time. We do need to take time to switch off and reflect. So a tool and an exercise I'm going to give you now is to encourage you to grab a piece of paper and pen, and I'd like you to write down as many things as you can think of that helps you to de-stress. Okay, so you can call it your stress reduction list, but equally, feel free to be creative with it if you want to write your happiness list, your balance list, like whatever it is for you that will resonate and be meaningful. But just take the time now to write down from the little things to the big things, all right? So from a small thing that helps you to reduce stress, such as enjoying a nice cup of tea. Sound very British as I say this, don't I? A soothing cup of tea with a nice biscuit or something that just in that moment for a few minutes you really enjoy. If it is listening to uplifting music, if it is taking time out in nature, if it's going for a walk, exercising, if it is doing something creative, if it is doing a mindfulness or meditation-based technique, if it is spending time with loved ones, whatever it is for you, really try to just take that time. And, we're just going to have a little bit of time now to do it. And I'd encourage you to do more later. But just write down as many things as you can think of that help you to de-stress. So I'll give you a few more seconds to just note some things down. Okay, so like I say, with the time that we have together today, I really encourage you to take more time to do this for yourself later on. Rather than thinking of it as squeezing something else into an already busy day, reprioritize, think, okay, can I do this on a break that I'm going to take for myself? Instead of being on my phone and scrolling for a few minutes, I'm going to actually just do this instead. So there are always ways that we can reprioritize our time. So that's another thing that you can consider when thinking about managing stress. If you find yourself saying these things quite regularly around, I can't do this, I don't have time for that, and there are actually things that you really would love to make time for, perhaps rephrasing that to, I'm not prioritizing this at the moment, or I value this more at this time, which is, there's no right or wrong, but it's just being mindful and actually recognizing that for yourself. It's not I don't have time, it's I'm prioritizing other things. So what can you do to reprioritize a little bit to make a bit of time for yourself? Because it genuinely is a selfless act, the opposite of selfish, to take time for yourself. Because when you take the time to re-energize, to replenish your energy levels, to reset, not only are you in a better position to be at your best for yourself, but you're in a much better position to be at your best for others around you too. So it creates a positive ripple effect. So please do take the time to continue this exercise. And this is supposed to be a tool, an exercise that you dip into consistently. Keep it available, keep it to hand, keep it easily accessible, in your space, and something that you keep adding to. Because the point here is, it's not that doing these things will alleviate stress. What we're doing here is tapping into exercises and things that you love to do, or things that help you to de-stress, so that you can tap into that different part of the brain, create a bit of space for yourself, so that you can get to a state where you can feel better able to manage the stressful event that's happening from a place of empowerment rather than a place of fear, right? If we're constantly responding from a place of fear, we're not coming from that more logical, grounded space. So that's the purpose of this. Repurpose it as a fun, creative, colorful tool as well. Like, make it artistic and creative, nice to look at, however you want to do it, but keep it to hand regularly. And also my task for you as well, task in a fun way, is after this, we're going to have lunchtime in the UK. It depends where you're dialing in from, obviously. But just when you have a break today, pick something on that list to do for yourself that's kind for yourself. and just enjoy it. See how it feels and see how it re-energizes you for the rest of the day. Okay, so one more exercise I'm going to do for you before we start to wrap up is called the 5-4-3-2-1 exercise. So this is a very popular mindfulness-based tool that can help you to, again, come back to that centered, more grounded state before responding to stress. So I'm going to share a lengthened version with you and then a short version. So the lengthened version is, and I encourage you to do this whilst we're here all together. So taking in a deep breath, because our breathing really helps to ground us, to stabilize us, to help us feel more centered. It also helps to calm the nervous system if we're feeling nervous. So taking in a deep inhalation of breath and slowly releasing out the nose or mouth. And you can keep doing that as I guide you through this exercise, deepening the breath and then releasing, and just notice how that feels to slow things down. So I'd like you to notice 5 things in the space around you that you see, 5 items, objects, noticing the color, the texture, the shadows, the shapes. 5 things that you see. And now I'd like you to notice 4 things that you feel. So whether that's your legs against the chair you're sitting on, if you're sitting down, hair against your neck, if it's something internal, any tension you might be feeling or lightness, if it's a watch against your wrist, whatever it is, 4 things that you feel. And now noticing 3 things that you hear. So tuning into the sounds around you, my voice can be included, but outside the room that you're in, inside the room, is it the whir of your computer machine? Is it another noise? Is it birds chirping? 3 things that you hear. And now noticing 2 things that you taste. Have you had a drink? Have you just had a snack? Is there anything that you can taste in particular? A couple of things. So swallowing, what can you taste? And finally, 1 thing that you smell. So taking in a deep inhalation of breath. Do you smell the scent on your body if you're wearing perfume or aftershave or whatever? Is it flowers nearby? Is it just neutral scent? Whatever. 1 thing you smell. And then I'd like you to just close your eyes and just take note of 1 thing that you feel really proud of yourself in this moment. 1 thing where you feel really proud of yourself. Perhaps you've overcome a challenge recently. Perhaps you have said no to something and felt really pleased about it. Made a bit of time for yourself. You carved out another little bit of time here and there, whatever it is, 1 thing you feel proud of. And then opening the eyes. So this is a lengthier version of this exercise. What it's done is it's helped you tap into your 5 main sensory receptors. So it's helping you become more present. This is a mindfulness-based tool, right, that helps you to be more mindful of your mind, your body, your environment with an attitude of curiosity and kindness to yourself. A quick short version of this, where you don't really have the time to do something like that, is in the moment, if you just need to take a bit of a step back, take a pause and not react straight away to a stressful scenario. Just take a deep inhalation. No one needs to know you're doing this because it's all inside your head. So you take a deep breath in and you count down in your mind, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, as you breathe out. Okay, so you take a deep inhale in, and as you exhale, you say to yourself 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 internally. And then you can do something that anchors you into a state of feeling more empowered, whether it's holding your hands, whether it's tapping on your legs. So anchoring is helping you to come to a more grounded state. So you process how you're feeling, you take a pause, take a beat before responding. So you're, rather than reacting, you're responding in that situation. I hope you felt that was a useful exercise. The time is going so quickly, so we're going to start to wrap up. So the idea here is about rising above your circumstances. It's easy to feel sucked into the overwhelm, into the present of what is going on in that moment, and into the overwhelm of your emotions, your feelings, responses to a situation, especially if you're feeling something's unjustified or you feel it's not fair. But just taking that moment, even if it is just a few seconds or 30 seconds, a minute, whatever it is for yourself, it's finding those pauses, finding those times to regulate your feelings and emotions, to manage stress levels, and to take a step back so that you're not just reacting in the moment from a place of fear. You're taking a step into a more grounded state of empowerment and a state of calm, so you feel better able to respond effectively. So essentially you are rising above. Okay, you're not being sucked into that overwhelm. You're actively choosing to take a step back to manage stress levels. So I hope you found these tips and resources useful, and some further stress management resources and techniques are here for you to look into as well. So I'd really encourage this. So we have a new workplace wellbeing assessment that's completely free. All of these resources I'm sharing with you today are free. And this is a quick 2-minute quiz that you can take. It's only 20 questions split into 3 sections about your management. It's particularly for managers, business owners, senior leaders. This is where what the quiz and the assessment even is designed for. So it's 20 questions split into 20 questions split into 3 sections, tumbling over my words. And it's split into understanding how you manage mental health as a manager for your team, understanding your workplace culture in terms of mental health and well-being, and then how you manage your own mental health and well-being. So that can be a helpful resource for you to take and just get an instant result at the end, telling you a percentage score of where you're on the scale of preventing burnout and managing your mental health and supporting your staff, and what your workplace culture is like. So please do feel free to take that assessment and just get more insight for yourself, and then you can have a further conversation with us to look into your results in more detail and explore what else you can do to help yourself and your staff. We've got a Karma blog full of inspiration, insights and research, full of information in loads of different areas, from mental wellness to managing stress, mental health at work. We also have a positive mental health podcast called Take Regular Breaks, and it does what it says on the tin. So it's encouraging you to take breaks, drawn from evidence-based research. We explore so many different topics to nurture mental wellness, with leading experts, authors, speakers in this space. So some really amazing people to listen to there. And finally, we've got the Reignite project, which is our free campaign you can sign up to. There's a short 5-minute film as well associated with this, and it's also our award-winning campaign where you get to receive a 10-week burnout prevention e-course, providing you with a multitude of burnout prevention strategies. So please feel free to sign up to that as well. So all that's left to say is a big thank you to you all for joining today, or for those of you who are catching this replay. As we always say, here's to your inner and outer success, not just what people see on the outside, but what's also going on the inside. And of course, I'd love to stay connected with you, so you can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram at This Is Karma and at Tanya Degree. So I'm just going to come out a screen share here, and we are at time. So thank you for your comments as well. Really appreciate that. And I hope that you found this useful. Lots of tools that you can take away and put into action straight away for yourself. I hope you feel like you have a better, enhanced understanding of stress response, burnout, how to prevent burnout from escalating, and how to nurture mental wellness. So thank you all so much for taking the time to be here. And I wish you all the best. Thank you, everybody. Take good care of yourselves.